Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. We just about did a video on pulling apart the top part of the transmission on the TR6 because as I was shifting gears, if I didn't have my hand on the gear lever as I was accelerating, it had a really annoying rattling noise. And I thought maybe there's a spring and a plunger at the bottom of the gear shift lever. I thought maybe that was it. Turns out if you replace the gear shift knob with one that doesn't wobble, you don't get this sound. So that's what I was listening to. Anyway, so no video on that, sorry. I'll set this aside. What we are gonna do though is just some basic maintenance. I've got the Heeley behind me and we need to drain and fill the gearbox oil. And I'm gonna check the oil in the rear axle as well while I'm at it. So we're just gonna do those two things. Quick video this week, so let's get to it. Okay, so first thing you're going to want to do before you even think of getting started, you want to locate everything. So this is the drain for the gearbox, this is the drain for the overdrive, and I don't care what you're working on, the number one thing that people forget to do on this, find the fill plug, locate it, make sure that you can open it. If you have a fill plug that is frozen in place, or if it's really hard to reach, or if you try to open it and maybe the bolt head breaks off, there's a dozen things that could happen that could go wrong very quickly. So you really want to make sure that you can find those, that it's loose, that you can open it. If you can't, stop, because if you drain the fluid, the car is going to be stranded. So very, very important. On the big Heeleys, there's actually a dipstick on the top of the transmission. You get to it from inside the car. Pretty straightforward. I've already checked it. That one's nice and loose and easy to access. So what we can do, I should get my drain here first. What we can do is let the old fluid out. Yeah, actually this fluid's looking pretty clean. It's a good thing. Couldn't find records on how old it was though, and so if you don't know what's in there, it's usually a good idea to drain it anyway. But it's a really good sign that we're not seeing metal particles or any of that floating out of it. Oops, that was dumb. Strictly speaking, it's not necessary to open both if you're just doing some quick maintenance, but if you can, it's not a bad idea. The gearbox oil is shared between the overdrive and the gearbox, so that's why if you can get one out and the other one's frozen, sometimes in the Spitfire GT6s, the plug in that D-type overdrive could be really difficult to pull out. Now, if on your overdrive you're having any issues, one of the first things you want to check is the filter, which is this guy right here. It sits it sits inside, just underneath, just above the fill plug. So you want to make sure that it's clean. There's a couple of magnets that are in there, and you want to make sure those are clean as well. The whole idea is that this is going to trap the particles that are floating around on the inside. That's why a lot of if you read the forums, you see 30 weight non-detergent. The idea behind the non-detergent oil is that a detergent is going to suspend any particles in the oil so that they can be filtered out. Well, there really isn't an oil filter as such in the gearbox, and so you need something else. The filter it's really more of a strainer. Anyway, so since you're not doing an effective job filtering out particles, you need them to sink to the bottom where they can be caught by this magnet and the strainer that's in there. So just make sure that gets a good clean. You don't want any fuzz or anything from the rag that's on there. And pop it back in place. If there is a torque spec to these things, you generally want to use it. We're just going to snug this up and call it a day. It's a very precise measurement, by the way. Snug it up. Okay, that's the fill plug back in. Let's get up top and we'll get some oil in it. Okay, next thing we need to do is, of course, get to the fill point. And again, on a big Healy. That is right here. Let me get a little bit more light so you can see it. Okay, and then of course you're going to need the oil. There's a reasonable chance we might end up spilling something, so I'm just going to pull this carpet out. And even so, a little bit of newspaper just to help with cleanup. Pull the plug out of the way. And as I mentioned, dipstick. Okay. Okay, now for a big Healy, I really like Redline's MTL. They don't give this to me for free. I kind of wish they did. That'd be really nice. So Redline, if you're listening, Midwest Motoring is very open to sponsorship. And I know that there's a lot of people that specifically will only use like 30 weight engine oil, which is okay. There's not technically anything wrong with that. But the thing with engine oil is that engine oil is made to disperse combustion byproducts, which there aren't any inside a transmission. You really just need to lubricate the gears. So gear oil has different properties in terms of things like shear strength and basically how well it sticks to the teeth, how well it handles mechanical pressure And so that's really what's going to make gear oil better. It will work absolutely fine with your Overdrive. Now, anytime you're filling a gearbox that's got Overdrive, you want to let the fluid settle for a few minutes, because it shares fluid with the Overdrive, and there's some drilled passages that go between the gearbox and the Overdrive unit. You need to give that oil time to get from the front to the back. So we're going to wait a few minutes. We're going to check that again. I suspect that the level is going to drop slightly. We'll add a little bit more fluid to top it off, and then we're done. I'd say we're right where we want to be. Just for reference, make sure that when you're looking at the shop manual for these things, that you're checking the right measurements. So in a big Heeley, the shop manual is going to list it in pints. There's probably a specification for liters as well, but just make sure you're looking at the right numbers so that you don't put in too much or not enough. And always check it. Okay, quick point here. This is a Triumph Spitfire gearbox. And the Heeley gearbox has, as you saw, a fill plug on the top and a dipstick. But that's actually going to be a lot less common than what you might find in other cars. So in the Triumph boxes, in fact most gearboxes you're going to see, there's going to be a fill plug like this on the side. And what you would do is you'd take the fill plug out, you would put fluid in through there, and basically you just fill it until the fluid is at the level of that plug. So keep pouring it in. When it starts draining back out, right as you put it in, you know it's full. Put in the plug, tighten it down, you're good to go. And one thing that's very useful for that job is going to be something like this. You see it's just a fluid bottle. This may or may not be correct for your car. Don't worry so much about that. But you can buy these at pretty much any auto parts store, and it's going to have a tube like this. You can put it in. You could do it from underneath the car, and then you would just pump it to fill it up. So find out the capacity, buy enough fluid to go in, and just get it in your car, and you're good to go. Make sure to dribble extra on your floor so that people can track it around your house later. Okay, so this is the same kind of plug that we just saw in the transmission. And all we're going to do, we're not draining and filling this because the fluid's already clean. We're just going to try and figure out if it's full. So, let's see if I can get this socket wrench in here. There we go. There. Not much room on this. We're pretty close on that. Okay, what I'll say on this is the same as what we had before. Just get some kind of pump. And so you just want to keep putting in fluid slowly. Until just like that, you see it starting to pour out. May seem like I'm torquing this a lot, but honestly I just have bad leverage on it. There we go. Okay, just wipe it down. And you're good to go. Had we been draining this, there's the drain on this. Not all of these are going to have a drain. And so in cases like that, something like this tool is perfect, because you can get this just as far down into the differential as you can go, and suck out all of the fluid that's in there. And you're not going to get all of it, but you can get enough at least for a service and to help it last longer. If you have a drain, obviously use that. And then in some differentials, like in the Triumph Spitfire diff, it didn't originally come with this, but if you take the diff apart for any reason to service it, change the seals, what have you, you've already got it out of the car. You may as well have it machined. Just put a drain hole in there. Triumph never did it from the factory, but let's be honest, the intended design life of the thing was maybe a few years, not 50. And if you want to have your car last a lot longer, that's something you're going to want to pay attention to. Okay guys, that's it for this week. Like I said, just some simple maintenance. I'm going to check the air pressure in the tires. Always a really good idea to do when you're done with anything else that you're working on. If you have questions, go ahead and post them in the comments below. And other than that, like, comment, subscribe, give me that thumbs up. It really does help the channel, and appreciate you guys watching. Thanks a lot.